Okay, so this is like the fourth time I've tried to make this video and something has went wrong every time. The last one went perfect, but then the game sounds were overpowering the microphone. So I've made that adjustment. Let's try again. So this is the program that I've been working on. I've tweeted about it a little bit here and there. I know there's a lot of tools out there that do similar things, but none of them really did things exactly the way I wanted them to do to help with exploring, and it does help. You'll have, if you see any of my stuff on Twitter about this, you'll see that at one time there was a tab up here that said Orbital Mechanics Lab, and I sort of had that working, but it was buggy and you couldn't really trust the numbers, and since I will soon have to return back to a normal work schedule, I had to cut that feature and just put what I've got for now. Maybe once it gets up on GitHub, somebody wants to, help work on it and help get that part in there. I ripped out all of the Orbital Mechanics code because it was just pieces of other people's stuff that I had pieced together to get something to work, and it was just buggy and it was hard to follow. So I took it back to this, which is still helpful. So here's what it does, of course. And I've noticed since I've been testing it today, it's a little buggy, but I just don't have a lot more time to put into it right now. I will in the future. So this up here is just standard information about what you're doing and where you're going. This just reads all the event tags. This reads from the loading game file or the loading game event. This here I have now found out is buggy because I logged out last night, landed on a planet, and when I logged back in, it didn't pick up the ship registration. I wonder if I log out and log back in, if it'll fix that. But this is really not, doesn't mess with the way it works. It's just a visual problem. Of course, here's your fuel level. It measures tons, not percent. This tells you how much fuel you scooped in the last session and how much fuel you've scooped total over the amount of log files that are loaded. Current system, target system, of course, how many jumps are left in your current route, and your cruise mode. This is a little buggy because it follows what the music is doing, so it's not 100% all the time. This is your star grid. This will list every star in the system. Sometimes as soon as you get there, sometimes it takes a minute. You'll see in a minute when I make a jump. I stopped at a Class L star. I'm not going to scan anything here because we're going to see what happens when you do a jump and start doing the scans there. If the body has materials, this will update with those materials. This here where my mouse is will update with the materials as you FSS scan the planets. And then once this down here is populated where the bodies actually will be listed, if you click on one of them, these things here will update with that information about that planet. Otherwise, it follows what you've last scanned. And same thing here for the body signals, but of course you don't get these until you go map the body and you get the signal count, that kind of signal. And then this one is just if the planet has that atmosphere, it's the composition. Screenshot manager is really nothing right now. It just shows you the last screenshot you took and what that screenshot looks like after it was converted. For me, I generally keep my my game settings on medium because it does get laggy when I'm running OBS in the background and running all kinds of other stuff. What I like to do is take high-res screenshots, because if you take a high-res screenshot, the resolution is something outrageous, like 15 something by something. 15K by something, and then when you compress it down to 4K, you actually get back all of that high def that you lose running your video card in medium. Now, if you do a high-res screenshot, which in the game is Alt F10, it takes this program a minute to process that because those high-res screenshots are 150 megabytes. But then you end up with a small JPEG. These are what I always, when you ever see my stuff get posted on Twitter, my screenshots, this is where they're coming from. It tags the system name up in that corner, tags the date down there if you want it to. That's all changeable here in settings. Now, like these say in the little messages here, these you really should never need to change unless you're doing some kind of testing on a different log set or something. I mean, these are hard-coded in the game. They can't be changed. But if you need to, for some crazy reason, you can check that box and it'll do it, but this checkbox never gets saved. So if you were to come back in here to want to change it again, you'd have to check that box again. This one here is totally user controlled. You can put them wherever you want. This just explains a little bit what it's doing with the log files and some things that it will do in the future. And here is where you enable or disable automatic image conversion. And this tag here is what puts that information in the corners, the date tag and the system name. Here's your converted resolution options. I don't think anybody wants to convert anything higher than 4K, so that's what we've got there, and then all the way down to a postage stamp at 16:9. These buttons right now do nothing. They will in the future, but it's just something that I added that if you want to close it, just when you're done, just click the X and that'll close the program. I just literally, like I said, I just don't have time to finish all this stuff right now. I will in the future, but right now I don't. So let's get back to this main dashboard and see what we're playing with here. So you can see up here that our next jump is going to be to a K-class star right here. So let's go ahead and start that jump. Hopefully there's some enough bodies there to get a good indication of what this program's doing. It works fine whether there's one body, no bodies. I mean, you still get a lot of information about the system, and I know you can get all this stuff by going through all the menus over here, and you can, and it's great. And I play with both of the system maps all the time, but when I'm scanning, you know, I want to do things, you know, I want another display right here that shows me pretty much what I would put together in there if I went in there and did all the research and then wrote all my, you know, wrote a bunch of notes or whatever. That's just pretty much, this is what I would take in notes, this program over here, if I was going to sit there and go through the whole map looking for things. So you'll see right as soon as, pretty much right about as soon as we appear at, or we end up at the next jump, this whole thing will clear. And here we go. Shouldn't take long. Normally I speed scan, but I'm going to stop for this one so we can go over what's happening. So we're here at the system. Auto scan will still pick up anything that's close, and you'll get that on the screens like the star. So the star just popped up. General information you can get, you know, by looking at the looking at the menus in the cockpit. But here it's just like right here. I don't have to go anywhere to go find it. It's just like right here. So I can look and I can see that this is very, you know, it's just a little over half the size of our star. The body ID is 2, which that gets heavily used when we do orbital mechanics, but still that's not running right now. The distance is of course 0. So I haven't honked yet, so you get this message. We have entered a new system waiting for update from the FSS. So we do the honk. And this one has 4 stars, but no bodies to scan, which is a good thing. I mean, it actually is not a bad thing to see this first, because then you can see exactly what happens when you only have stars, and then it'll tell you right here all 4 bodies have been scanned, so you know there's nothing else to scan. When we get to a system where there are bodies to scan, this message won't pop up until you have scanned all of the bodies. Otherwise, it just tells you how many bodies are left, or how many bodies total there are to scan. And you can see the event up here updated. This isn't quite updating right because we're not in hyperspace right now. We're in Super Cruise, but I'm not really worried about it because this still does what I want it to do. So now let's take off to the next body, or the next star, which we can see at the top on target system is a class K. And let's see what we got there. Oh, there was another star really close out there. See, I wasn't really worried about the stars because I want to jump in to scan a planet, but you can, all of these columns are sortable. You can sort them, and the distance they give you is not your current distance from them. It's the distance from the jump point. So that's the star we came in on. It's 0, and then the one we're looking at right there is 177 light seconds away. So that explains that. Good little hit there. I'm glad that happened. What shall we find here? Okay, so we're here. You don't have to wait for that to update. You can still start to scan. It'll process all of it. And we've run into another system that only has one body. It's a Class K star about half the size of our sun. Body ID 0, because it's the only body here. But we used a lot of fuel there, so let me fuel up here real quick. Well, I got 96 tons. I'm not getting low, but when you're way out here, you never know when you're going to run into a great big string of brown dwarfs that can't give you any fuel. So when you can, it's good to fuel up. Good enough for now. So our next star is a Class G. We can see this again up here in the target system. And you can see that this keeps going down every time we jump because it counts it from the logs. You see here, this tells the last amount of fuel that I scooped in one scoop before I pulled off. Normally, if you're just sitting there refueling, these will be like 5 something. So let's jump again to this Class G and see what we find. It'd be odd to find a string of 3 or 4 stars in a row with no bodies at all, so should be something here. Okay, let's start the scan, and what do we have here? 5 bodies, so that means we've got 4 stars and 1 other body. This is a crazy string of planets, but let's see what we've got. We've got some kind of a big gas giant out here. We'll go find it real quick. It's not going to be much to explain on the screen, but we'll go find it real quick. Man. It could be way out there at one of those other stars, because if you see, man, see now if you look over here, it does show you some interesting stuff, that all these stars that are way out there, but they're all within a couple hundred light seconds each other, or a couple hundred light seconds each other. But for this demo, I am not going to take the 15 or 20 minutes that it would take to fly all the way out there. So we did get one pop here. Of course, you get the body name. It tells you whether or not it's landable. The body class, if it has an atmosphere, it'll tell you. Now, even though these are gas giants, they technically don't have an atmosphere. But if you click here, you'll still get the makeup of their body, which is, in this case, 73.82% hydrogen and 26.18% helium. You get the gravity. This is color-coded. So you can, maybe you don't want to land on every planet in the system, but you find one that's got a gravity of 6 or 7, and then you're like, oh, I just want to go play there. So you could do that real quick. Here's the temperature in K. I convert it to Celsius because I like that better. The radius of the body. If it is a landable body in their materials, this will turn green and have a Y in it. This is supposed to do the same thing, but it doesn't work right now. But you'll still get it up here. This is the distance from the jump point again. Eventually this will be the distance from where you are when we get the orbital mechanics working, but right now it's just the distance from the jump point. This means that we used FSS scanner on it. This means the Discovery scanner has been used on it, which we're not going to do here. And then we'll explain the rest of these when we get to a planet where they can be used. So now our next jump is a Class M. Maybe we'll have more luck there. Let's take a ride. Now, one thing I'll say in this during this jump is this piece of software, it sends no information to the internet, it pulls no information from the internet. It's all local processing. Because if you try to put in market connector stuff, or to send data to EDDN and the star map, you're going to create another schema. It's going to be another set of data they're going to have to worry about making sure it's clean. I mean, the EDDN schema is pretty well defined, but my whole view on it is market connector is pretty light. They don't use hardly any resources if you run it with no plugins, and there's no sense in replicating what it already does very well. So if you want to send your data to the to the star map, to EDDN and all that, just use market connector. This program will never send data outside of the local system. It's got one purpose: to help with exploring, and that's it. So yeah, if you want to actually still, if you want to run that, you can. I'm running both of them right now. And it works just fine. I can track myself on the star map, and it's great. So just keep that in mind. This will never do that. It never sends your information to the internet. It never pulls any information off the internet. It's just all local, all in memory. And as soon as you turn the program off, it gets dumped out of memory and it's gone, except for settings, which get held in the application. But those are just file paths. But anything about your game, as soon as you turn the program off, it gets dumped out of memory. So let's do the scan here. 11 bodies. Okay, that's a little something to work with. So, and 8 other signal types, which you can see here, which we'll find as we scan them. Now we, of course, go to the scan. Hopefully there's something interesting to look at here. Well, the whole galaxy is interesting to look at. I just mean something that shows, the things that this tool can do. So if you see, I scan and I pop out real quick, because all the information I get from the scan is going to pop up in this window over here. So I don't have to spend all day sitting there reading everything that pops up in a scan. I just scan it all real quick, and then I go back and look at my program over here. Now, granted, this program, I mean, it assumes you have 2 monitors. There would be no other way for it to be really useful. Well, there would for it to be useful, but it would be a pain swapping back and forth all the time. So it really assumes you have 2 monitors, or it almost requires that you have 2 monitors. And I won't say it requires that you run Elite Dangerous in windowed mode. It lets you, if you do run it windowed mode, it lets you, mouse in and out of the game without, having to actually wait for the screen to, the full screen to reset and all that. That's it's just better if you do it with 2 monitors. I designed this, and I tried my best to keep it to where it would fit on a 1920 by 1080 monitor, and it will, but it's going to use almost all of a 1080 or a 1920 by 1080 monitor. It's just slightly smaller than that monitor size, which is great for somebody that, that don't want to buy a 2K or a 4K, another 2K or a 4K monitor, maybe having a spare 1920 or 1080 laying around. You could... It would easily drive that, but I've got a 4K and a 2K, and I run the game, of course, on the 4K. It's a 32-inch LG, and I run this on a 24-inch LG 2K. I think it's a 2K. Maybe it's a 4K. I don't know. Either way, you're going to need at least a second monitor that's 1920 by 1080 to have any real good use out of this. Okay, so we did all the scans here. And there's one landable planet that is 519 light seconds away. One thing I said in here that will be an option in the future, but right now it's hard set, is it always sorts by distance. Every time you scan a new body, it's going to resort by distance from jump point. So even though there's not a whole lot of bodies in this system to scan, there is one. So let's go ahead and head out there and see what we can find. So here we are. Let it do its thing. And as you can see, like I had said earlier, the atmosphere stuff, I mean, when there is an atmosphere, it shows up. Unfortunately, the one we're going to look at doesn't have an atmosphere. I love landing on planets that do have atmospheres just because you get really good screenshots with those. But yeah, so one idea that's going to be popped up that will pop up on GitHub is for the body class to change color if it's a very interesting planet like a water world or an Earth-like world. This will change color to a complementing color, like maybe water worlds will be blue, Earth-like worlds will be green. You know, just whatever. Just so you know it pops and you see that, and you know, because sometimes say you're scanning a big system like a you know, it's got like 35 or 40 bodies. You may forget that you scanned a water world, and sometimes you run into systems that got, you know, 2, 3 water worlds, and you may tag one to go look at, and then sort of, I've done it before, and forget about it, and then you jump. Or even right now, if in our big race to find ammonia worlds with points of interest on the landable bodies, you know, you can get overwhelmed with the information and forget. But with this dashboard here, you'll know where you've been, and you'll see that as we start doing things on this body here. And then you'll know if you visited that water world or if you visited that ammonia world. And that's one of the things I was trying to pull off with the orbital mechanics, which eventually we'll get back there, but it was to actually in every system to plot the fastest scan route between everybody in the system. You can't do that just based on jump distances, because jump distances don't give you the coordinates of the body. So you may have body on one side of the star that's 400 light seconds away and a body on the other side of the star that's 400 light seconds away. And if you just calculate based on light seconds, it's just going to tell you that they're both, it's going to tell you that they're right on top of each other when really they're not. But again, like I said, that code was a little buggy, and I need to take the ideas that I got from piecing together what I did before, and then actually write my own methods to do the calculations, and that I don't have time to do right now. Plus, this was, you know, to go along with that, this was my first major C# program. Most of my programming is Perl, JavaScript, stuff like that. So. Now, again, so just hop back over here. We finished the discovery scan. It took 3 probes, which it shouldn't have taken 3 probes, but I was talking and not thinking about what I was shooting. So, you know, you've done that there. So, even though there's not much to discover here, I mean, there are some materials, but I don't need any materials right now. We're still going to land on it. Let's see, so let's get over here. We're 500 light seconds away from the star. I wonder what that looks like. Oh, there's another body right there. That's cool. So if you do a screenshot, you just hit F10 or Alt F10 if you want to go that route. We'll just do F10 for now because it's faster, and you'll see like I hit it and then it shows up within a couple seconds. But that's not really doing any compression. It's only converting from bitmap to JPEG. Because when you take a screenshot in Second Life, or not Second Life, that's my wife's game. And here, unless you use high res screenshots, they're at the resolution of your gameplay, which mine is 4K right now. So normally when I'm going to land just to play around, I try to find the day-night line. This one ain't going to have much of a day-night line. I think I see something right there. There ain't many good places to land here, but we'll figure something out. Maybe go down right here. Normally I'll spend a whole lot of time maneuvering for spots to get good screenshots, but since I'm just showing off what the software can do, I'm not really jockeying for a great landing position. It's just wherever I can get footing to land. Yeah, don't go in at this angle on a high G planet. You won't ever recover, and you'll hit the ground and lose about half your shields. Or at least I've done it a few times. I'm sure we all have if you're out here exploring every day. So, yeah, that looks like a nice flat spot. I use auto landing about half the time. Sometimes I'll find the perfect place to land, and I'm all lined up and angled for it. And then auto land will take me like 10 kilometers away from where I was, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. So depending on my mission, I run it about half the time. Super Cruise I run all the time because it just so gets you between the bodies so much faster when you're scanning. Okay, so we're landed. Now you can see over here on the program, it actually registers that we landed here. I clicked on it, and that's why it went away, but it's just because it's the color. Again, you can see, and you can probably guess by the name of the next column, that when I deploy the SRV, it's going to tell me I deployed the SRV. And not that there's much to see here, and I'm not really looking for materials because I'm pretty stocked up. There's our pretty star. Let's see, is there anything else here that we want to, that would be worth? Oh, yep, there's that planet, or that other body that we had out there. So what we can do is, we got a pretty good shot there of a star and a moon. So we do, and this time I'm going to do it in high def, so we're going to do Alt F10. And you can see in the program over here that it'll take a little bit longer for that new one to pop in because it has to read in a 150 megabyte high-res image file. Because like I said, they're like 15K by 8K or something weird like that for the resolution. Yeah, see, it's going to tell you program not responding, but don't freak out. It's just because it's such a huge image file. And so there, it's done. We can go to Screenshot Manager and see the original and then that one. And since I saved mine in this, it tells you where the folder, where it saved it at, and just in case you forget where you were saving them. Eventually, this will be a Screenshot Manager. But for now, it's just shows you the changes. So we did that. We'll go ahead and do the footfall so you can see that the column trigger off disembark. Now you can see it already did it because actually we get the log entry before everything's done rendering. And then we can look around, and maybe we'll just look up there with our guy here and do one of those cool zoom shots just because they're cool like that. So you get there, pull around there, come up a little bit, zoom down, pull out. Let's see, let's do this. Let's go that way a little bit, zoom in, pull out, go down, and then I lost signal. There we go. And then just line it up however you think looks good, and then take a picture. Well, this one's not quite straight, so let me fix that. There we go. All right, now see, that one was really quick because it's standard def, it's not high def. So now we'll get back in our SRV here. It'll still register this as a disembark up there even if you never take the SRV out. But it won't show the SRV unless you actually take the SRV out. I mean, those are pretty hard-coded to the events and the log files. Everything in here is triggered on the events, and then it just pulls the numbers when it needs them. There's really nothing special going on here in this program except read the log file, convert the JSON into something usable by C#, and then just use a whole lot of if-then statements to put it in the right data grids and let people interact with it. It's not really that difficult. This original idea did this whole thing using Linux and Elasticsearch and a couple other big data tools, and I'm like, I was thinking nobody's ever really going to use this. Nobody's going to want to go through the trouble of maintaining this just to play a game. Well, it's not a game. It's partially my life now, but it was just the thought of nobody's going to want to maintain all that stuff just to do this. So then I was like, well, I'll take a jump into C# and see what I can pull off. And this was the result. So as you can see, we'll start to lift off. As soon as the gear's up off the ground, the liftoff tag will show, and then you can say that you've generally explored the whole planet. How long you spent on the planet, that's up to you, but then you could put a timer on that too if you wanted to, but nah, it's not worth it right now. Just to let you know what you explored. Now, we are going to take a jump to a more populated system, so I can explain one thing. This video, I guess you can skip through it at leisure, because I'm assuming it's going to be about half an hour long when it's done. I don't know what I want to do. I'm going to try to trigger the jump error again. So I'm at 90 degrees. I'm going to get outside my ship. And I'm going to zoom around. I don't know if you have to zoom or not, but one day I was just zooming, trying to, just because when you start a jump and you're outside the ship, it'll pop you back in the ship. But I was just doing this one day, and I was like, okay, let me jump. I wasn't jumping to my jump point. I was just jumping back into Super Cruise. So that's what we're going to do. And here we go. And there's the error again. And that's why I'm headed there. I'm really intrigued as to whether or not this is a game bug or part of the game itself, possibly a virus in the ship computer. I don't know. I've seen a little bit of information on the internet about it, but I'm going to go check it out myself. Granted, there are millions and millions and millions and millions of stars in that zone, and I don't know what the hell I'm going to do when I get there, but we're going to go check it out anyway. So let's jump to this next system. And we can see it's a T, so there's probably not going to be much to explore there, but we'll see. Again, you can see up here that it's a type T. And we're now 185 jumps from the outer Perseus conflux. So, might take me a day or two to get there, maybe 3, maybe 4, but I'm not even going to stop and scan this system. There may be something here worth looking at, but more often than not, there's not. And I'm trying to get us to somewhere where we can see multiple landable bodies. It may happen here, but they're not pretty stars either. So our next one is going to be a K, so we may find something interesting there. Okay, we have arrived at the K star. It's about a little over half the mass of our sun. There's 15 bodies. There's a couple gas giants here, looks like, so there might be enough. There might be enough planets to show multiple landable bodies. Oh, we got a water world. So you can see here, this popped up, and it does say water world. Like I said, I got something in the works to change the color when it's a water world or an ammonia world or something. So we'll go ahead and tag that one in case it is the only one. and do our normal scans. That one's not landable. It would suck to run through a whole other body of non-landable planets. Oh, there's one. Looks like a good chunk of the bodies are going to be around this gas giant. See, we have picked up a few landable bodies. This should be enough to do the final explanations. This will be available for download on GitHub not long after this video goes up. The link to this will be posted too. And then you can do whatever you want with it. So you can see here there were 15 bodies in all. And you can see this was changing as I went through the different things, the body materials detail. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 landable bodies in this system. Since we're sorted by distance, we can see that the closest landable body is 368 light seconds away. Now, we already landed on a body. So you know what happens over here when you scan the body and you land on the body and all that. And the reason I wanted to show all these is this video is getting a little long, so I'm just going to explain it instead of going and exploring everything. But that will happen everywhere. Even if you go to these ones you can't land on, you'll still get these. The reason these are all yellowed out is it means you can't do those things on that planet. But you can do everything on every planet, like these two rows. But as you click through, you can see it does change. This one actually does have a small atmosphere, nitrogen, 99.32% nitrogen and 68% argon, 0.68, and then it's iron, nickel, sulfur, you know, and you can sort this too in case you're looking for a specific material that you know is in low, you know, in low availability. Same thing over here, you can sort that. Now, I wasn't going to land on any of these. Well, it won't matter because anybody that's done exploring knows what these different atmospheres look like. Now, one thing I do have in the plans is to also, with this, color code it to give what it thinks the color of that atmosphere is going to be when you get to that planet. That'll be based on screenshots that I take of planets with these specific kinds of atmospheres. So I didn't... One way it helps me is as when you go over here, when you go over here and you look at this, you can see what's closest to you, but you don't know what you've scanned. Now, if you go to the map down here to the system map, you can get that information. I haven't scanned anything here, so it's not going to be very helpful. But yeah, you can go here and you can do that. You can go to the other map and you can do that. But what I want to be able to do is say, okay, I've already scanned. Well, let me go do one and I'll show it. Well, it might take 3 or 4 to do that. But anyway, what it comes down to is you can't tell from this menu what you've already scanned. But from over here, you can. So you can say, okay, well, I look at this, and if all these are green, I've already been there. So if this tells you that planet 1 or body 1 is the closest, but you know you've already been there, you can say, okay, well, this is, you know, the next closest. Well, see, because this won't change. This is from the jump point. But over here in the game, those numbers do change as you move around the system. So what you do is you use this over here as an add-on to the distances that you get over here in the computer, and then you use this one here to know where you've already been, but use this to get the closest, you know, the closest distance. That's really the main reason. And plus, you know, I don't always want to land on every planet. If they've got something I need, I'll you know, I can use this to go land and say, yeah, I need to get some of that. If it's an atmosphere that I want to check out, then I can know over here exactly what the atmosphere composition is. And really, that could, in a future idea, that could also be something that gets tagged on the picture. You know, it was like, hey, this was a cool picture, and it was 100% methane, and people would know. Other people might know that that they could. Eventually it'll be updated. You'll see the colors that you could potentially see if you go there. The radiuses, they're nice. I mean, this doesn't do any tracking on radiuses. This is more about speed of exploring. And it's not that I'm, I don't like to look at the same stuff over and over and over again. And this just gives you a really good overview of what you're going to see if you actually go down to the surface of any planet. So, I mean, that's really where this comes into use. It's really only for exploring. I mean, there's a few tools out there for different market connectors, and there's some exploring tools too, but none of them really did it exactly the way I wanted it to do, and this is pretty close to exactly the way I wanted it. So hopefully, some people get some use out of it. Like I said, it'll probably be within the next few hours after I put up this video, at least sometime today, that this gets uploaded, and then I'll add a link to probably Twitter, because that's about the only place where I interact with other commanders. So anyway, I hope you enjoy the video. Hope you think this might help you in your exploring a little bit. And like I said, it'll be available for download later, and it'll be a full GitHub repo where we can put in feature requests, bug reports, all kinds of stuff like that. This is Windows native. It's C#. It was compiled with Visual Studio 2019. And so far I haven't really had any problems with it. Hey, if you're interested, no doubt, give me a like or a reply when I drop this on Twitter. And we'll take it from there. So have a great day, and I'm looking forward to releasing this for everybody to play with. Bye-bye.